masukude umfazi obelilinye uncancisela phesheya komlanjana. For us, it is essential that before even one begins to utter their name, they must acknowledge where they come from. They must acknowledge those who came before them. In Isintu, we have this understanding that what makes a being is plurality, meaning that what makes this composite being is both the maternal and the paternal aspect coming together. And therefore, in these two strands, there is information that moves. There is knowledge that moves in the blood, in the DNA. And this information, as the lineage progresses, it complexifies. Before we continue with the message we've been sent by Landa Madala to share in this space, we'd just like for us to take a collective breath. It's been a long day, and also other people just came out of another panel. Maybe other people are still traveling and haven't quite yet arrived in this here now time space that we're all occupying. So if you can, kindly, we'd just like to ask to take your right hand and put it on your heart. And if you're able, just to try to make sure that your spine is sitting erect and you're comfortable in the chair. Both your feet on the ground, and you can feel the connection. That in this moment you're connected. That in this moment there is no separation. And simply tuning into the vibration of the heart, listening to your breath, just allow yourself to close your eyes. And as you're feeling this breath in your body, in this moment, allow the breath to move through this whole room and allow it to connect with the breath of all beings that are here. And now that our breath is one, let us extend this breath into this geography we're in, this region of Stellenbosch. And while we're extending our breath, connecting with the breath of all things, all the plants, the stones, the animals, the rivers, the mountains, the clouds, and extending beyond the atmosphere into the sky, into the stars, into the orbits of planets, and sit with this cosmic breath in you in this moment, and recognize the connection in all things. Samaku. Thank you all. Oh, see, I hear someone sighing there. Thank you for releasing that sigh. Perhaps then our conversation will begin here. Many years ago, and perhaps the year was 2012, we were very deep in the space of computing sciences, information technology. And while I was in this space of study, I was very fascinated by artificial intelligence, but also the possibility of computing technologies for us, particularly here in the African continent, and what these computing technologies can do for us in our communities. But during this time of inquiry, I had, maybe I was too young at the time, other people termed it a midlife crisis, where I felt very confused. I was like, hey, is this really what I want to do with the rest of my life? And in this moment of listening as to why did I come here, what is it that I'm actually here to do, something within me spoke that said, if you really want to know, then you must connect directly to the source. And many years later, for the sake of time, I decided to drop out from the IT space because I could not see myself continuing for the rest of my life, mapping the zeros and the ones. Something in me said I must open my heart. If I really want to live, I must find a way of opening my heart. So since 2013 till 2018, I've been in this process of trying to understand who am I, what speaks to me, what speaks through me, what is really the essence that drives me as a being, as an entity. Not only just as someone who's called Sisonke, who comes from this particular lineage, but what do I as a soul feel I came here to do? We come from a polygamous family and have also been quite privileged to grow up in a homestead that acknowledges both African cosmology and, we would say now, Western worldviews, in the sense that our connection to this understanding of a supreme being or the divine at first came through very strongly via the Christian lens, but also there was a very deep rootedness in the earth, in tradition, in ritual, in ceremony. These not only as arbitrary things, but as technologies. Technologies that are able to assist the growth and the ascension of souls while in the physical body. This device you're seeing here in front of you, interfacing with you, other people call it the body. In isiXhosa we call it umzimba. Umzimba as a word is compound, meaning that umzi and ba or imba. The word umzi means a home or a house or a vessel. But when you change the tonality of the word, you get the word umzi. Umzi now refers to the reeds. And when you listen deeper into our cosmology, you understand that we actually emerged from the waters. We are the people of the reeds. So before we became terrestrial beings, we were aquatic beings. And now to the second component of this word, mba. Mba means to close or to be enclosed, but it is also that which sounds. Ivale mba, it is sealed shut. And in the past few months, I've been really privileged to be able to interface with different people who speak different African languages. And please, we are open to being guided in this space as well. We've learned that in Shona, imba means song. And when you go further into the Eastern African region, yimba means sing.
Yes.
Or and also this word is a root of this understanding of what the human body is. So in our cosmology, we understand that this is not only just a body, but in itself, it is a resonation chamber. it is a site for resonance. What is this resonance? We call it umoya, or we call it umphefumlo. That within the body dwells an entity, or a soul, or a spirit. The word for breath is umphefumlo, but also the same word umphefumlo can be used to speak of the soul. So the act of breathing isn't only just a breathing, it is essentially an ensouling. It is us drawing in the cosmic primal life force and anchoring it into a focal point which we call a human body. And therefore, consciousness is able to move, to flow in that way. This is why when we say umntu uyaphefumla or uyaphila, we mean that they are not only just breathing, but they're also alive, or there is an enlivening happening in their system. And once the breath or the spirit or the soul leaves the physical body, we say now umntu uswelekile. Ukusweleka as they are being missed, or they are no longer there, or meaning that now the soul has transitioned from this anchor or from this locality into another space, into another plane, into another realm. And this is very vital as a primal understanding of who we actually are as beings and as entities. That we are essentially divine beings. And the spirit and this breath that lives in us lives in all things, and therefore is connected to all times and all space. During this time that we characterized as a midlife crisis, in our cosmology we would understand it as ingulo. Kuthiwa lo mntwana uyagula. Ukugula in this sense speaks not to a sickness per se, but it speaks to a spiritual affliction. That through this being, there is something that wants to emerge. There is something that wants to grow and blossom, but it doesn't have a channel to be able to do that. And this is something that we can characterize for all of us in this place. That as we grow in this life, or at least in the machination and design of the life that we live, because this reality we think is reality is not the only reality. There are many other realities. And even for me to be transmitting this message in this particular language means I'm weaving in a particular reality. Kodwa xa nditshintsha ulwimi lwam ndiqala uthetha ngesiXhosa, ndithi thina singabantu apha emzimbeni akuphili umoya omnye, kuphila imimoya. Already now I'm moving in a different reality. I'm moving in a different understanding of what this creation is. So language is not arbitrary. Language becomes the tool that is able to work with the finer particles of the reality and orders them, and therefore reality can be able to flow. This we encapsulate in a very beautiful maxim that says, umlomo uyadala. What you speak comes into creation. How does it come to creation? It is the breath, or it is the soul inside the body, moving through the design of the vocal cords, interfacing with the subtle elements, making things possible. So everything we say has power. To continue, while I was in the space of seeking or searching or trying to understand who I am and why I'm here, we finally had to surrender to information that has been moving in my bloodline for centuries. And this information is what is known as ubugqirha. In 2018, finally, after exploring many studies and many things and teaching in universities, I felt as though I'd reached a threshold, that there's a limitation where my consciousness can't go because my mind has been disciplined in a very particular way. And I needed to find a way to unlearn and to deprogram, or to shift my awareness from my mind and into my heart. And when I finally surrendered to the call to become igqirha, my ancestors gave me the name KHNYSA. KHNYSA means the one who must bring light. It is an instruction. It is not only just a name. What is Ubugqirha? Very briefly. When the colonial intrusion, and I prefer to call it an intrusion than anything else, when it happened and some of the first settlers saw some of Amagqirha, they were called witch doctors, or other people misnamed them for the lack of understanding what the reality was, what was the consciousness moving in that space, or because they came from a different reality, this reality did not quite match. And this is probably a wound that even our country hasn't even begun to address. The suppression of the indigenous African consciousness, how we see and understand what reality is, and therefore how reality flows. So Igqirha, when the doctors, the medical doctors started coming, they were like, oh, what are these people doing? Like, we're doing the same thing here. So you are doctors essentially, but because what you're doing is strange, you are witch doctors. But essentially, that could be further from the truth. Today, what is called the medical doctor in our language is called Ugqirha. Ugqirha and Igqirha are two completely different things. Ugqirha only works with the physical material body through diagnosis, through pharmaceuticals. But Igqirha is connected to cosmic law. Their intention is to bring about restoration and harmony, not only in the physical body, in the emotional body, in the psychological body, and also in the ancestral, spiritual bodies as well. And this, for us, we feel is essential, especially in the time that we live in, that many sicknesses, or ingulo, keep arising. But then when we interface with them, we only look at the physical body for the causes. What is happening in the emotional plane? What is happening in the mind? But perhaps most interestingly, what is still held and remembered in the blood? What does the blood hold? And what does it keep sharing and sending from one generation to another? We have another maxim that says, "Ufuzo luyaqithisa," which essentially means that the information that moves through the bloodline, as time goes, it replicates, it becomes more complex. And so, therefore, we who are here now are essentially a kind of distillation of all the ancestral memory that has moved from the very beginning into this moment. And therefore, the elders would say, the intention and the purpose of those who are here now is actually to surpass their ancestors. That we must learn from them. And because we have learned from them, it is our onus to create a different reality, a better reality. So when we finally surrendered to this work, and would go as far as to say, this is really when I feel like my life began. I really could say this is when I started living. Because now I'm no longer living as a truncated being that is only moving through my mental faculty and powers. But I'm also deeply connected to my heart. I'm deeply connected to the earth. I'm deeply connected to my ancestors. And by virtue of that, I'm connected with all that is. And also perhaps to extend this understanding of the ancestor, that it is not only just the humanoid, but it is actually the plants, it is the mountains as well, it is the rivers, it is all the atoms and the elements, because they essentially make up this physical makeup of who and what we are, both in the material and the immaterial forms. So from this time, I've been really deeply learning what it means to listen. Ukumamela. Not only just with the ear, but with the whole body and with the whole spirit. And from this space of listening, we have gone into a deep appreciation of the technology of ngoma, which does not only speak to sound, but essentially speaks to the vibrational nature of the universe. That all things in creation vibrate, and therefore everything in the creation sings. Everything has a particular song, a particular rhythm. And it is this song, then, that keeps everything in the creation moving. As I'm here now speaking, as you're also here now breathing, the plants, the leaves, the wind, the breeze, everything is creating a symphony, and everything is creating a harmony. So in this cosmology, everything is understood as being interlinked and interconnected. That essentially there is no separation whatsoever. And to move in a space that is separated, it means that you are not connected, firstly with yourself, and also therefore with all that exists. At present, now moving away from the coding and maybe many other things that come with that space, we have been really drawn into technologies of sound, technologies of sounding, and also how the resonance of different instruments sits in different parts of our bodies, in the different organs, and also in different parts of our consciousness, and what those can do for us. An example, a drum. A drum is a very bassy tone. It's connected to this part of our body, from the waist down, but also deeply connected to the earth. And Amakriha understand that our primal life force exists here in the waist. And this primal life force, when one is ready and it is activated, it moves here from the base of the spine. And this energy we understand as umbilini. Usually this energy is activated when one, perhaps, maybe when we move into the neurological side of understanding the body, when one feels activated, or when their sympathetic nervous system is so activated that the body begins to vibrate, and then this energy is activated from the spine and begins to move in a coiling form. Once this energy moves from the base of the spine to the crown, that is when then one is able to access not only just the connection to themselves, but with all things. Amakriha, or healers or diviners, work with this energy in order to be able to heal. What is curious for us as well is that the nature of working as Amakriha, maybe the term is anti-disciplinary, or perhaps it is a convergence of all disciplines, because Ikriha isn't only just a healer, they're also an artist, they're also a community leader, but also Ikriha is someone who deeply respects the environment, that they know that now these are my ancestors. So this term, or this way of being or of understanding, we feel is very, very essential because it returns us to unity and into oneness. And the essential nature of our work is rooted around that. This fundamental understanding of the body according to this cosmology, and also how the body holds the breath and how the breath sits in the body. And therefore, once the breath and the body are in unison, what is then made or created? So at times, we work with sound, but we also work with form, or with shapes, be it carving wood, or be it working with the earth itself, to weave it, to work with it, to create different kinds of spaces. We also appreciate color as well, and the different frequencies that move within that space to create the material reality. So sound, shape, and color for us are very essential forms of working in creating a holistic experience for the appreciation, firstly, of oneself, but also the greater environment that we exist in. Namako.
Thank you. This is